parlay. Have a little discussion. Obviously, having a job is not a safe course of action. It's not safe. Having just a regular job, unless it's in the service industry, but nothing seems to be safe anymore. Not entirely. And some people, I do say, they have union jobs. I'm not against it. So many people have swayed towards their narrative of their respective political party. And in this case, a lot of people have swayed in the direction of either left or right, or Democrat or Republican, for that matter. And that dictates where their argument lies. And I see so many people who are Republican vehemently against unionized jobs, because it stifles innovation. And being it as it may, yes, to a degree, I think it does. And it evokes, or fosters a bit of laziness, right? But then again, I'm for people, really. And what that does is it secures people's jobs, right? It ensures that people have rights in the jobs that they have. And they can't just be fired willy-nilly. And it keeps automation sort of at bay. It keeps it at bay, at least for the time being. But we all know eventually the flood comes, and in comes automation, in comes AI. So no job is really safe to a large degree. And there's always that if factor. It's not a question of if, it's really a question of when, right? When you will lose your job to automation. So that's a very big concern. One of my cats. But that's what it is, really. You can't get away from it. You can only keep it at bay. And we've seen this with the longshoremen at, the various different ports around the country. They are keeping at bay automation due to the contract requirements. But we all know eventually, in the years to come, that automation will set in and will take a large portion of their jobs. And more money will be funneled to the billionaires, right? And a lot of these billionaires that people admire, a lot of these billionaires that people suck up to, like Fred at corporate, the one that has all the bright ideas, has an office in the corner, and finds ways of screwing over people for profit. As well as that, there's a lot of restructuring in these corporations. And of course, that restructuring means that out with the old people and in with the new workers, meaning ones that don't take a rest, ones that don't need a lunch break, and ones that can work around the clock. So how would one circumvent this process and really mitigate being let go? Well, by skilled trades, being a repair technician. You would be that one that would be a monitor, making sure that if we have a breakdown, you go in with your toolbox and repair the robots. Well, that would ensure your job. Yeah, absolutely. And then there's that question, what if robots repaired robots? Well, I think that we're a far way from that. I'm not going to discount that eventually coming into play. But in the next 20 years, I see, people repairing the robots. Yeah. It's a very hard answer. And there's no answer. And those people that you look for the answer don't really have it, because you can't foresee what's way down the road. You can only look around the corner and negotiate the turn, right? What I'm a proponent of is entrepreneurship. I mean, look, if that's going to be the only way that you can secure employment is by being self-employed and doing it the correct way, where you are an employee of your own company that you built, okay, you'll have a job, because you're the determining factor in who gets a job and who doesn't, right? And all these politicians getting paid by the billionaires that pass those laws that don't benefit you. They're not thinking about you. And they want to stifle your growth because they got paid to do that. They got paid to pass these laws that do not serve you, right? And you voted in these politicians that told you what you wanted to hear. And then once they get into office, they backslide, right? Each and every time. We see this day in, day out. We see this in every election. So if I could really give somebody advice, would be, if you don't have a service skill, let's say you don't have a skill like a mechanical skill, if you're not a technician, if you're not a plumber, if you're not a carpenter, if you're not an electrician, something of that sort, because those are very good jobs now, and look, those people that went for their doctorates, those people that went for their PhDs are finding out now that, well, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. They're always chasing their license. They're always having to, I would say, maintain their license, their practicing license. And they always have that looming over their head. Like, what if I lose my license? What if I lose my license? And so they're playing the game of trying to win people over and trying not to make anybody mad and trying not to be a target of malpractice, which could make them lose their license, right? So it's a very stressful game for a lot of these people, especially that went to, school for 8 years, got out and did their internship, their residency for however many years until they were able to secure themselves a job, and a position at a hospital or a position at a law firm, whatever the case might be. So they had to tiptoe. They had to walk on eggshells. And in the process, they get burnt out. I could easily see this, And so a lot of them are dropping out. Okay, let me go ahead and pay off my loan as quick as possible. And a lot of them do. A lot of them that I've talked to over the years paid off their loan, just lived really humbly and got out. Got out because it was not for them. They wanted a more simple life because, every year, more regulations, more rules, more laws, and it just, you feel the walls close in on you. And you don't want to be that person getting crushed. I've heard somebody say, well, somebody's got to get, effed, right? Somebody's got to get effed, and these are the people that get effed. You know what I'm talking about. And that's a career ruiner. They end up in some community college teaching anatomy and physiology for 60, 70, if they're lucky, 80 grand a year, but they're pulling all kinds of hours. They're doing day classes and night classes and weekend classes and summer classes just so they can get ahead and pay their bills. It's not and really to pay their student loan off, right? What a society that we created. And so a lot of these people, they do just that. They pay off their debt and they get out. They get out of the game, or they go work overseas, quite simply. And some people even join the military to get those student loans paid. Absolutely, if that's what you have to do, and do out the remainder of your commission contract and then leave the military to do their own ventures. Very smart thing. But the common folk, what about the common folk? What about the common folk that worked that mid-level corporate job that got laid off? You have an applied set of skills, yeah. You can freelance. Try freelancing. Not easy thing. It's not an easy thing, and golly, how would I even do it? Well, I would have to sell everything I owned and probably go down to Mexico and freelance over there, where I could make the most out of what little money that I make, because I just started it up, and just plug away morning to evening, just to survive. But at least you have culture nearby. At least you have parks where there are people. Here in the United States, you go to parks and they're empty. Empty. Every time I go to a park, it's almost empty. I remember 20, 30 years ago, you go to a park and there's families there. There's children playing. There's kids playing ball. You don't see that anymore. It's a cruel world that we live in now. It's a hard world. And what can you do but make the most of what you have now, whatever that is? And what is the answer to it? I would start by downsizing. It's not easy. But try to live simply. Try to live very Spartan. What I mean by that is eat simple, live simple, drive simple, house yourself simply, as simple as possible. Because these are very, very hard times that we're living in right now. And if you have the money to spare, like I say in my previous videos as well, get some land out in the country, even if it's an acre or two, grow your own food, and try to live off the grid. You can plug into electric. If you've got a job, if you've got steady employment, but minimize your bills as much as possible. If you can go without, go without. If you're only one person and you have two cars, consider selling one or keep one in the garage just in case the one that you're driving breaks down, so you can at least get to work, and there's another thing right there. If you have to register your vehicle, call into work, say, look, I got to take a sick day and register that car that's in the garage, right? Learn how to do things on your own. Learn how to do your own oil changes. Learn how to do your own brakes. YouTube's available, right? Cook your own food. Cook your own food. Stop going to Chick-fil-A. I don't know how many times I go past Chick-fil-A and I see a long line in the morning for them to get their breakfast. If you can't wake up a half an hour ahead of time and just eat a simple breakfast, or not eat a breakfast at all, because that's not the most important meal. I can tell you right now, I quit breakfast decades ago, and I'm in my midlife, and I'm pretty fit for my age, you know, and yep, just try to live simply, as simple as possible. Not easy and not fun. Now is not the time to enjoy. Well, I've got to go because my cats are causing a ruckus. So let me see what they're doing. Anyway, I wish you all well. You know, I hope everything works out for you. And just a little bit of whatever advice I can give you in general. I know everybody has their specific problems, and a lot of people are backed into a corner. And the only thing they can really do then is choose what they value more than the other, you know, because it gets worse. I think prices are going to go up yet again, and the dollar is going to be less valuable. So, yeah. And that's all I got. Peace.